Okay, so get this. You brought us some pretty wild predictions about China, and it's not from some think tank or anything.
Yeah.
It's from a YouTube video about Krzysztof Jackowski,
Okay.
this Polish psychic who, like, helps the police find missing people, apparently.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, and he does this thing called psychometry,
Psychometry.
which basically means he uses objects to, like, see the future.
Okay, listening.
So in this video, he's got two stones sent all the way from Shanghai.
Stones, huh?
Yeah, and he's using them to tap into the energy and, like, get visions of China's future. Pretty out there, really.
Definitely a different approach that we usually take.
Right. So that's what we're diving into today. Some of it is a little intense, just a heads up.
Well, that's why we're here. I'm definitely intrigued.
All right, so first up, Joukowski's take on China and Russia is, well, he thinks they've got this super strong alliance.
Ooh.
Stronger than it looks right now. It's like they're secretly working together, even though they seem to be doing their own thing.
It is interesting because on the surface, they do present themselves as independent players, but there's been a lot more economic and military cooperation between them lately. It does make you wonder if there's something more going on behind the scenes, especially with their shared interest in challenging the U.S.-led global order.
Exactly. And then there's this year of the inverted dragon, as he calls it.
Inverted dragon.
Yeah, where he sees China leading this, like, coalition of nations and, get this, introducing a whole new international currency.
Wow.
Could you even imagine, like, going to the store and not using dollars anymore? What would that even do to prices, to jobs?
Oh, the economic implications would be huge.
Yeah.
The dollar's dominance gives the U.S. a lot of power globally. If another currency starts to compete with it, it could completely change global trade and, well, yeah, financial markets.
Right. Okay, so far so good, maybe. But then it takes a really dark turn. Joukowski sees the U.S., maybe even under another Trump presidency, becoming super aggressive to stop China's financial moves. He's talking about an all-out financial war.
A financial war. That's a chilling thought.
Yeah, and it's not just theoretical, you know? We're already seeing countries using financial tools as weapons, like sanctions or currency manipulation.
It's true. Those things are definitely happening more and more.
He even mentions crypto playing a role in all of this.
Crypto?
Yeah, like countries battling it out with digital currencies and algorithms instead of tanks and missiles.
Yeah.
Crazy, huh?
It's definitely a possibility. Crypto being decentralized and all, it makes it appealing for countries trying to work around traditional financial systems or, undermine other currencies.
Right. And according to Joukowski, all this tension eventually leads to a full-blown world war in 2026.
Oh, wow.
But here's the really unsettling part. He sees China getting hit with a devastating attack, maybe nuclear, maybe something even worse that we don't even know about, and suffering, like massive casualties.
That's disturbing, to say the least. Scenarios like that could have consequences for the whole world.
But what really gets me is Joukowski senses that China wouldn't retaliate.
Wouldn't retaliate.
Yeah, like why wouldn't they fight back? Even if they were facing total annihilation. Is he saying they can't, or is there something else going on that we just can't even understand?
That's a question that raises more questions than it answers, doesn't it? If a nation has the capability to retaliate against a nuclear attack, but chooses not to, what does that tell us? It's really a puzzle, and yeah, a potentially terrifying one.
And to top it off, Joukowski thinks America basically orchestrates the whole conflict, manipulating other countries to carry out the attack on China. And then America is like the only superpower left.
That's a pretty bleak assessment of America's role in all of this.
Right.
It would definitely solidify the idea that the U.S. is determined to maintain global dominance no matter the cost.
And it's not a great picture for Europe either. Joukowski sees the U.S. treating Europe like, a subordinate, calling the shots.
Considering how strained things have already become across the Atlantic, it's not outside the realm of possibility. Especially after a major global conflict, it makes you wonder what would happen.
Okay, so we've got World War, devastating attacks, and America calling all the shots. Pretty bleak.
Yeah.
But wait, it gets even weirder. The person who sent those stones to Joukowski, they also included a sealed letter with their own vision of China's future. And Joukowski opens this letter right there in the video. Are you ready for this?
Okay, let's hear it. Let's see how this vision lines up with Joukowski's.
All right, so the letter says, under no circumstances come to China in 2026. This country will only be safe after 2028. And then it says this one line, they will evaporate.
Evaporate. That's a chilling choice of words. What could possibly make a whole population just disappear?
I know, right? It's like something out of a sci-fi movie. And then they describe these empty streets in China, like everyone just vanished without a trace.
So we have this image of mass disappearance, this population evaporating with no explanation. Could it be like a metaphorical way to describe the aftermath of an attack? Or is this person hinting at something completely different, something we haven't even considered?
Yeah. Does it tie into Jackowski's vision of this one-sided attack where China doesn't fight back? Or is it something else completely? What do you think?
It definitely adds another layer of mystery to all of this.
Well, that's all the time we have for part 1, but don't worry, we'll be back with part 2 where we'll try to make sense of all this. What are your thoughts so far?
That letter, and that word evaporate, it's really stuck with me.
Yeah, me too. It's just so open-ended. Like, what could even make a whole population just vanish? I mean, are we talking like crazy advanced tech here? Or did aliens decide to swing by for takeout?
Let's try to stay grounded here. Remember how Jackowski sensed that China wouldn't retaliate?
Yeah.
What if this evaporation is, direct result of that attack? Just not in a way that we usually think about, like warfare.
Okay, I think I see what you mean. So maybe it's not nukes or bombs, like we know them. Could it be some kind of like super advanced tech? Something that just wipes people out without a trace?
Exactly. Like, think about how fast things are moving in, say, bioengineering, nanotechnology, even things like directed energy weapons, those things that sound straight out of sci-fi.
Right.
It's not impossible that some kind of technology exists or is being developed that could do what's described in that letter.
Whoa. That's that's both mind-blowing and terrifying.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder what else is out there that we don't even know about, right?
Absolutely. And that's why these predictions, even if we, take them with a grain of salt, they get us thinking. They make us confront these possibilities and ask ourselves what kind of future we're creating.
There's this other detail from the letter that kind of caught my eye. They mentioned this vision of a new nation called Hashia. Any idea what that could be about?
Not a term I'm familiar with. Could be a misspelling, or maybe a name that emerges in the future. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But it does raise an interesting question. If China is dramatically weakened or just disappears completely from the world stage,
Yeah.
what fills that void?
Yeah.
Do new powers emerge? Do existing ones, fracture and realign?
It's like we're trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces keep changing. Economic collapse, possible world war, super advanced weapons, new nations popping up. It's a lot to process.
It is, but that's often how it is when we try to understand the future. It's all about possibilities, not certainties.
Yeah.
And the more complex the situation, the harder it is to predict what will happen.
Right. Okay, let's slow down for a second and try to connect the dots here. We've got these two separate visions, both pointing to major upheaval in China's future. Jackowski's reading from the stones and, well, the sender's vision from the letter.
Yeah.
And while they're not exactly the same, they both kind of converge on some key points. Conflict, devastating attacks, and China looking completely different on the world stage.
Right. And neither of them are being vague about when this is all supposed to happen. 2026. That's the year they both point to as this moment of major change.
Yeah, and not the good kind.
It's close enough to feel, well, immediate, which makes these predictions even more unsettling. Like we're hearing a clock ticking down to a moment of huge uncertainty.
Yeah. It's easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom of it all. But the future isn't set in stone, right? We still have choices. We can try to steer things in a better direction.
Absolutely. These visions, no matter how disturbing, shouldn't paralyze us. They should be a call to action. If we're worried about conflict, about technology being used in the wrong ways, then we need to speak up, make our voices heard, work towards a future where those things don't happen.
Right. Knowledge is power after all. And sometimes that means facing uncomfortable truths, having these, difficult conversations. That's what this is all about, right?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's not about just blindly accepting these predictions. It's about thinking critically, understanding how complex everything is, and thinking about the choices we have. Yeah. Individually and as, a global community.
So, listener, I want to turn it over to you. What's your biggest takeaway from all of this? The idea of a new world order, what these super advanced weapons could mean. Or maybe just a reminder that we still have the power to shake what happens in the future.
A lot to think about, for sure.
Before we wrap up this part, though, there's one final prediction from Jackowski that we need to talk about, and this one has really been bugging me. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, lay it on me.
Okay, so Jackowski describes this vision of the world after the conflict where America is, the undisputed superpower.
Hmm.
But here's the thing. He sees America like deliberately limiting access to technology and resources. Like after all the chaos, they decide to keep all the good stuff for themselves. It's kind of, dystopian, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a pretty disturbing thought. One nation having that much control, deciding who gets access to essential things like technology and resources. It raises all sorts of questions about fairness and, well, the potential for exploitation.
It really makes you think, like, who wins in that kind of world? Is it actually a victory for America, or is it more like a hollow win, built on top of global instability?
That's a really good point. It reminds us that even when there's a clear winner, there can be these unintended consequences, things that affect everyone, even the ones who, on the surface, came out on top. It makes you think about the responsibility that comes with power and how easily it can be misused.
So where does all of this leave us? We've gone through these predictions, looked at different scenarios, and talked about what it all means for the future. What are you taking away from all of this?
For me, it really just highlights how important it is to find peaceful solutions and to keep talking to each other. If we're really concerned about conflict, about technology being misused, then we need to be involved in shaping a better future.
It's like that saying, right? Knowledge is power. And sometimes that means looking at those uncomfortable truths head on and having those tough conversations, like we've tried to do here.
Exactly. It's not about just accepting these predictions as, inevitable.
Mhm.
It's about using them to think critically, to understand how complex the world really is, and to consider the choices we have, both as individuals and as a global community.
So, listener, what's sticking with you? Is it the potential for a new world order, those chilling implications of advanced tech, or maybe just the fact that the future isn't set in stone, that we can still play a role in shaping it?
It's all worth thinking about, for sure. Staying informed, thinking critically about the information we come across, and having these conversations. That's what matters.
Well said. We hope this deep dive has given you some things to think about, challenged your assumptions, and maybe left you with a sense of wonder and a bit of cautious optimism.
Because even when we're looking at, unsettling predictions, there's always hope. There's always a chance for a brighter future if we work together.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the unknown. And remember, the future isn't something to be afraid of, it's something we can shape.